All right, we're gonna keep this video pretty short, but we're gonna talk about all the stuff that we missed in the last video. I can remember all of it. So I said that there were things that had to be eliminated from that video because of storage problems. Let's go ahead and start with this part right here. Look, that front glass leaks like your first wife did on her wedding day. The glass company said that the cheapest and easiest way to fix the leak is get a new glass installed. So there's no reason to cover that glass up inside or out. We'll just work with it. With that being said, during the process of getting this cleaned up so that we could do the welding and then cleaning this up for the paint, I went ahead and pulled off all that old nasty silicone that was gummed up in there, and I went ahead and trimmed the seal right here, the trim on the, I cut it here, pulled it across, cut it on the other side in the same spot. Then I ran some dollar store tape on the top and some more painter's tape on the bottom, and I filled it in with a fresh coat, filled it solid with black silicone. And now, would you believe it, this glass doesn't leak. So I guess maybe I should have went ahead and covered this glass. But when it's all said and done, by the time I took a razor blade and some Windex and cleaned this glass up, got all the overspray off of it, there's really not very much pitting in it, if any, left. So I'm comfortable with it as it is. We're going to ride with it till it starts leaking again, or until a rock hits my windshield, and then we'll get it replaced. All right, so the original plan on the latches was to come off with a metal plate that stuck out just a little bit with a hole in the middle of it. And then we were going to put a bolt on the roof, drop the roof in place, the bolt would go through the hole, you could tighten it up. Don't forget, it's not a radical kit. A radical kit, you can latch it, pull it forward, latch it, pull it backwards, and it's sealed because of the grooves. This kit, the roof has to have pressure downward in order to seal. So if we put a tab out right here and then put a bolt in the roof and bolted it down, that would have been ideal, because just like the C4 Corvette with their roofless design, the roof becomes part of the structural integrity of the cab when it's bolted in place. Now, the reason I decided not to go with that type of style was pretty simple. If this was a show truck that was only going to get driven every now and then, that wouldn't be that big a deal. But this is a daily driver, and I get in and out of this truck probably 6, 8, 10, 12 times a day. So every time I get in this truck, I run the risk of hitting my forehead on this thing, and that's the last thing I need. Now, the next idea I came up with was a modified hinge system. And the concept was, we'll put the hinge, weld it to the roof panel, that way it swings down out of the way for taking the roof off. Then a hole on, well, we'd have to extend this, but a hole on the end and a nut welded in back here. That way, when the roof was set into place, this would flip up against this Targa kit, bolt in, and then that would cause it to draw down. That swings out of the way, just bolt it in. It's still part of the structural integrity, sorta. Not as well because of the hinge point. That becomes a failure point. But it wouldn't be any worse than what we went with and what we currently have. All right, the bottom of this is dirty because it's been in the back of the truck riding around with no tonneau cover. These are horizontal toggle clamps. If you don't know the name of it, apparently it's super hard to find them. But basically what it is a clamp that operates like that. When it has pressure here, This clamp, which by the way came from Harbor Freight, they're in the clamp section, not the catch or latch section. So when it's up, it almost pulls back far enough. The problem is it sticks out just enough that you got to work the top in one side and then the other side before you could seat it down. But that's my fault, and I'll show you the easy way to fix that. It's just one of those things that I got to take care of later on down the road. But put it in, when you latch that down, the pressure from this has about 500 pounds of clamping force, and it will stay in place. But that puts you in a position where it's possible you can mount this on the roof in the wrong spot. So what I did to get around that is this. Let's see if the light will work with me. All right. I welded in a piece of pipe that's just barely bigger than the clamp. So both of these two front corners, there we go. There, it's not pretty, but that holds that clamp in the right spot. That way that roof panel is where it needs to be every single time you latch it down. Now the easiest way to take care of where the clamp sticks out too far is to come in right here in the back corner and weld in a piece of metal that drops down, comes over, and welds over here. That way you bring that further down, and I don't know if you can see that. You can bring this mount point where the toggle makes contact, bring it further this direction. So if we bring that mount point further down, then we'll be able to bring this back because it's completely adjustable, at which point this won't stick out as far and you wouldn't have to work this roof back and forth. That's the only way I can describe that. I don't know if I did a good job or not. The bottom line is that those two corners in the back right there need to be brought out and down from the cab so that the point that the toggle mounts to, makes contact on, is further away from the roof. That way you can adjust your toggle back and it doesn't catch on the seals when you're trying to work the roof in. You'll just be able to drop the roof down. All right, I told you guys we were gonna get a look at the truck with the top on. It's not perfect by any shape, form, or fashion. But if we're being honest, this truck will spend more time with that top off than it will on. Unless it's too cold or raining. Those are the only times I envision this truck being topped. Otherwise, we're gonna be cruising topless. You can see right here, I'm probably gonna have to replace this window seal. It's decently snug up on this end, but on this end I didn't quite cut it long enough, so I'm probably gonna have to redo that. I need to trim this back just a touch, and of course it's got too big of a gap. But if you come to the inside, you'll see that 1/2-inch tubing is completely squished down on this rubber seal. You've got part of that rubber seal on the inside that's squished out. And I don't know if you can see it here. Yeah, you can. And part of that rubber seal is squished out to the outside. So there is no gap between the roof and the cab where the rubber seal is mounted. So there is no leaks up through here. We had a thunderstorm the other night, and this Targa did not leak, even with this little gap right here. Eventually we'll get our glass channel or window seals, whatever you want to call it, we'll get them replaced, but at the moment that's not really a priority, so we'll see what happens with that. overall, I'm very happy and pleased with that roof, or lack thereof most of the time. Now, I thought there were going to be some major issues with this door seal as far as taking the roof off the truck. But if you pay attention here, these door seals sit in front of these other seals. But let me take this roof back off and I'll show you what my issue was. It's not the lightest thing in the world. Now, for those of you that were paying attention in part 2 of this video, you'll notice that this was completely welded, and then it was completely welded across on the cab. Same on the front side, completely welded, completely welded. But the lip on both front and rear are not completely welded all the way across. So what I did before I put these seals in was I ran a bead of black silicone all the way down. Made sure that that was not going to leak. Then the seals went on. And if you were paying attention to the part of the video where I was talking about the end cap right here, you could see that this lip came down, curved to match the rain gutter that went here. Then I took some silicone and I filled the gap between the two right there so that any water that came down this channel could not come this way, it had to go that way. I did the same thing on the front side. Any water that comes down this channel is forced to go that direction. So that worked out real well. When the roof panel is on, that seal that seals up against the window, I thought was going to catch this lip, but because that seal is mounted to the back side of the door channel right here, it's further forward, so it's not that big a deal to get the roof on and off, with the exception of the fact that my latches are not exactly where they need to be. All right, let's take a look at these window seals. These are door seals that are trimmed to fit the edge of the Targa for the glass to lay up against. And you'll notice that I cut the seal a little further than the mount part. And you'll notice that there is metal in here. But what it is a whole bunch of U-shaped pieces of metal. So you want to grab you a pair of needle nose pliers and reach up in that rubber and pull out the one on the end, because it will rust. And if you don't do that, you at least need to throw some silicone on the end of it to keep the one on the end from rusting, which you probably need to do anyway, due to the fact that the silicone will help seal the gap where this was at and keep moisture out of the inside of this rubber. By the way, the easiest way to cut this, cut-off wheel. Now, I did go get me some door edge guard to put on the roof panel so that there's not a sharp edge. Don't want to hit your head on that or skin your fingers on it, taking it off or whatever. I need to trim up some of the roof panel. And honestly, I need to replace those seals and cut them better. We'll wait a little while before we do that. All of these are things that can be done while that truck is being used. I mean, let's be honest. There's no reason I can't drive that truck. I've been driving it for about 2 weeks now. But I don't live in North Ohio either. In hindsight, I should also point out the fact that that body work is not even close to being done. I just made it presentable, covered it with some paint. It's still got to be blocked down, made nice and pretty, but the simple fact is that that truck's nowhere near close to being ready for paint and body work. We'll deal with that later in life. Peace, love, and mini trucks. Life is better topless.